Hello students, welcome to Drishti IAS. My name is Saloni Nandkyoliar and in this session we are going to discuss the proposed 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill, the proposals that it has and what are the challenges that the Punjab government has with this. So we are talking about the 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill, and please note that I am using the word proposed, which means that this bill has not been formally introduced in either house of the parliament. It has only been proposed by the central government so far. This is the 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill, proposed 131st Constitutional Amendment Bill, and even in the proposal phase, it has been facing some controversy, especially some backlash from the Punjab government, because it talks about including Chandigarh in Article 240 of the Constitution. So this becomes extremely important for the examination. What is Article 240? What does it empower? And why is the government, some Punjab government or any other government, having problem with this inclusion? So let's start with Article 240. Article 240 of the Indian Constitution empowers the President to do what? To make regulations. Empowers the President to make regulations for the peace, progress, and good governance of certain UTs. So 240 empowers whom? The President to make regulations for the peace, progress and good governance of certain UTs, not all UTs but certain UTs. And the regulations that the President is going to make under Article 240 are going to have the same effect as any law of the Parliament. So these regulations are going to be equivalent to the laws made by the Parliament. In fact, these regulations can even amend or repeal any law that is already existing in that union territory. It can do what? Amend or repeal any law also. So it is going to have the same effect as any law of the Parliament. So what does this tell you? This tells us that we are talking about strengthening center's control over certain union territories, because when the President can pass regulations, this basically means that this is a way of faster implementation of decisions, because when something comes through Parliament, there are going to be debates, there are going to be discussions, and that is going to be a longer process. Versus when we talk about regulations being made by the President, we mean that we are talking about faster implementation of our decisions, because we can bypass all the discussions, we can bypass all the debates, and we can simply implement our decisions. So it is talking about strengthening the executive's control, strengthening the center's control over certain union territories. This is what Article 240 says. And I told you this is for certain union territories. So which are those union territories? We have Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Then we have the Lakshadweep Islands. Then we have Daman and Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli, as well as Puducherry. But please note that Puducherry has been included only under certain conditions, because Puducherry has what? A legislative assembly. So the President can make regulations for Puducherry only when the legislative assembly is dissolved or suspended, because we do not want to override the powers of the legislative assembly. That is why all these UTs, they do not have a legislative assembly, but because Puducherry has a legislative assembly, so the President under 240 article can make laws, can make regulations for Puducherry only when the legislative assembly is either dissolved or suspended. And when we talk about including Chandigarh into that list, This tells us that we're talking about strengthening center's control more over the union territory of Chandigarh. And this is kind of distancing Punjab from the dream that it has of a full transfer of Chandigarh to Punjab. Because if you look at the timeline over here, then in 1952, Chandigarh was made the capital of Punjab. Undivided Punjab at that time, 1952, Chandigarh was made the capital of Punjab. Then in 1966, what happened in 1966? Haryana was formed. So Chandigarh was made the joint capital of both Punjab and Haryana, as well as it was also declared as a union territory. And then if we talk about 1985, then an accord was signed in 1985 between the then Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, and the Akali Dal leader. So this was the Rajiv Longowal Accord. And this talked about, so it had many provisions, but this basically had one additional provision which talked about a full transfer of Chandigarh to Punjab. So Punjab kind of has a very historic arrangement, a very emotional sentiment when it comes to Chandigarh, because it has also been talking about a full transfer of Chandigarh to Punjab, because it was believed that Chandigarh was formed by taking out many villages from Punjab. So Punjab feels that it has a historical claim, a sentimental and emotional claim over Chandigarh. That is why it wants to have a full transfer of Chandigarh. In fact, when Chandigarh was made the joint capital of both Punjab and Haryana, the property in Chandigarh has been shared in a 60-40 ratio, where 60 is for Punjab and 40 belongs to Haryana. And when we talk about including Chandigarh to Article 240, this means that Chandigarh can now have a separate administrator or a lieutenant governor. So what happens in union territories? Union territories have an administrator, and now in the case of Chandigarh, if we include it in Article 240, it can even have a separate administrator or a lieutenant governor, because by convention, the governor of Punjab used to serve as the administrator of Chandigarh. This was not mentioned in the constitution. This is by convention under Article 239. The president is going to appoint administrator for the administration of union territories, and by convention in the case of Chandigarh, the governor of Punjab used to serve as the administrator of Chandigarh. Now, if Chandigarh is included under Article 240, there might be a separate administrator for Chandigarh, not necessarily the governor of Punjab. He can be a different person. Along with that, there could even be a possibility of having a lieutenant governor. So we are talking about loosening the control of Punjab over Chandigarh, and this is further distancing Punjab from the dream that it had of a full inclusion of Chandigarh into its own territory. That is why the Punjab government has issues with this. But for now, this is only a proposal. This has not been implemented. In fact, it has not even been introduced in the House of the Parliament. So as a next step, what is going to happen over here? This is a constitutional amendment bill. So this will be introduced in either House of the Parliament, and then what kind of a majority will be required here? We will require a special majority. A special majority for the passage of this bill, and finally the president's assent. Only then it will become an act, and the government does not have any plans of introducing it in the winter session of the Parliament also. But for now, because this is a proposal, and this proposal talks about strengthening centre's control over Chandigarh and loosening Punjab's control over it, there have been conflicts in Punjab. So let us see what happens in near future. But that was all for this video. Thank you for the discussion. Now let us practice a question for prelims. With reference to the proposal to bring Chandigarh under Article 240 of the Constitution of India, consider the following statements. 1. Article 240 empowers the President to make regulations having the force of law for certain union territories. 2. The 131st Constitution Amendment Bill proposing to include Chandigarh under Article 240 has already been introduced in Parliament. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. both 1 and 2, or D. neither 1 nor 2. Please provide your answers in the comment section and we will meet in a new video. Thank you for watching.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.